All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating what-if scenario. It's a speculative theory that connects two of history's most influential prophets in a way you have probably never, ever considered.
So here's the big, provocative question at the very heart of what we're talking about today. What if these two monumental figures weren't actually separate messengers at all, but were two different chapters in the life of a single reincarnated soul on one continuous mission? It's a bold idea, for sure. So let's unpack. And here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll dig into the provocative question itself. Then, we'll look at how one soul could even theoretically become two prophets. After that, we'll explore the philosophical ideas that make this possible, we'll decode some key symbols, and finally, we'll see how it all ties together into one grand cosmic story. Okay, so right off the bat, let's be super clear. We are stepping into a world of philosophical speculation here. This isn't about historical fact. It's not about religious doctrine. It's really about exploring a creative and, I think, really thought-provoking fusion of different traditions.
So where does this whole idea even come from? Well, it starts with a pretty wild linguistic speculation. It suggests that in ancient times, punishments like tongue mutilation, well, they existed. The idea is that if the memory of the name Moses was passed down through generations by people who literally couldn't pronounce it perfectly, it could, over centuries, morph into a similar-sounding name like Muhammad. It's a huge leap, I know, but that's the speculative starting point for the whole theory.
So how would this actually work? Let's get into the core mechanism, the central idea of how one soul could possibly manifest as two completely different people in history.
This really breaks it down into three simple stages. First, you have Moses, who lives his life and delivers his message. Step 2, when he dies, instead of moving on to a final judgment, his soul reincarnates. And then, step 3, that very same soul returns as Muhammad, all to continue what this theory sees as the exact same divine mission.
Now, for any of this to even make sense, we have to kind of step outside of mainstream Abrahamic thinking for a minute and explore a very different model for the soul's journey.
And here's the key difference. The mainstream Abrahamic view, which you'll find in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, is that you get one earthly life. That's it. It's followed by a final judgment. But this theory we're talking about, it draws on more esoteric traditions, like Gnosticism. In that view, the soul cycles through multiple lives, kind of like leveling up, learning and awakening more each time on this long journey back to its divine source.
And just so we're all on the same page, let's talk about Gnosticism, because it's super important here. It's basically this ancient philosophical system built on the idea that we all have a divine spark trapped inside us. And salvation isn't just about faith, it's about achieving gnosis, this kind of secret intuitive knowledge that allows that spark to finally break free from the material world and go home.
Okay, so with that philosophical framework in mind, the theory then starts to get really interesting. It turns to symbolic interpretations to draw these deep connections between Moses and Muhammad.
This quote really gets to the heart of the theory's logic. Think of it this way. The light, that's the divine truth. It's constant, it's unchanging. But the lamp, that's the prophet who carries the light, well, that has to be adapted for a specific time and a specific culture. So same message, just in a new vessel. And this is where the symbolic detective work really kicks in. The theory takes that idea of a lost tongue and reframes it. It's not a physical problem, but a spiritual one, a move away from earthly speech toward a deeper inner communication. Then it links the idea of a hidden face, connecting how Moses couldn't see God's face directly with the tradition of not depicting Muhammad's face. And it says both of these are symbols of a truth that's just too big, too transcendent to ever be captured in an image. Okay, let's zoom out now, because this theory expands from just the story of one soul into a mission on a truly cosmic scale. So to understand this cosmic battle, you need to meet the antagonist, the demiurge. Now, in Gnostic thought, this is not the true ultimate God. No, this is a lesser, kind of flawed, or even malevolent creator who built our physical world. And along with his cronies, called the archons, his whole job is to keep human souls trapped here, in a state of illusion and forgetfulness. So within this Gnostic framework, the arrival of Islam is seen as the final, decisive move in this cosmic chess game. It's the ultimate wake-up call, designed to completely shatter the illusions created by the demiurge. And the declaration that Muhammad is the final prophet gets a symbolic meaning. It means the game is over.
The system of confusion is now permanently broken, and that long cycle of reincarnation and spiritual exile is finally coming to an end.
Okay, so let's bring all these different threads together and really look at the grand narrative this theory is trying to tell.
When you look at it this way, the implications are just profound. It would mean the Torah and the Quran aren't separate books, but they're two chapters in one single long revelation. It would mean all prophets are just different faces of the same core mission. In this view, the entire spiritual history of humanity becomes one single, continuous story of waking up.
You know, there's actually a word for this kind of thinking: syncretism. It's the art of blending ideas from different, sometimes conflicting traditions, like in this case, Abrahamic religion, Gnostic philosophy, and ancient myth, to create a new, coherent whole.
And that brings us to a final point that is so important to remember. What we've been exploring here is a mythic and philosophical model. It's a creative synthesis of ideas, but, and this is the crucial part, it is not a part of classical Orthodox Islamic or Judaic belief, which both strongly affirm that we have one earthly life.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If we take the core idea of this theory and we just expand it a little, what if all prophets, across all traditions, are simply telling different chapters of the exact same story, just using the language and the symbols their people needed to hear at that specific moment in time? It's a pretty powerful question to ponder.